It's Formula One.
It's not easy to slip unnoticed into the piercing world of Formula One, especially when your product is all about delivering a kick, and your company image is the beast that wreaks havoc in China shops. But for almost a decade and a half, Red Bull lay like sleepers in Grand Prix racing. Deep-rooted, but dormant, powerful, but patient. There were the Sauber years, with no prizes to show. The sleepers slept. In 2004, a for sale sign went up over Jaguar Racing, and the bull stirred and pawed the ground. The network spread, not just one team now, but two. The designs were now grand. Adrian Newey took his place at the technical end, and David Coulthard sat behind the wheel. Was this the moment? Not yet. In 2008, Coulthard retired. And in 2009, the team of Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber slid into the RB5. And the beast lowered its head and locked its horns.
It's Red Bull on a charge!
Beef against brawn.
Jenson Button's run is over!
Second place in the Drivers' Championship. Second in the Constructors. And now in 2010, 6 pole positions in 6 Grand Prix. Vettel and Webber, 2 1-2s in the last 4 races, a first and third in Spain. Webber, the winner of the last 2 races. 2 Red Bull drivers on equal points at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Red Bull, the leading constructors. The sleepers sleep no more. The bull is on the charge as the storm heads for the Turkish Grand Prix. Red Bull in Istanbul. None shall sleep here.
The beast is getting all the attention she deserves. Before long, she'll be awoken from her slumber. And then the aim, of course, is pole position, as we'd expect. The precocious, playful, relative newcomers to Formula One are certainly upsetting the established order. McLaren are sitting second, and they're playing a frantic game of catch-up. And what about the oldest, most famous team of all? Well, if ever the Scala machine needs a strong race, it's here. A landmark weekend for the prancing horse. And it all began there, Silverstone, England, 60 years ago. Over 200 wins, 16 championships and 800 races later, Ferrari arrive here in Turkey, keen to recapture past glories. Fangio, Lauda, Schumacher. They all won titles resplendent in red. These days, Felipe Massa and Fernando Alonso carry the hopes of the Tifosi, and their fans across the world will be hoping they can mark their anniversary in style with a winning weekend in Istanbul. Home to 12 million people, this is the city where East meets West, Europe on one side, Asia on the other. The Bosphorus separates the two, and once a year, it's home to Formula One. And of course, at home as ever in the pit lane with me, David Coulthard and Eddie Jordan, 2 men who spent most of their careers trying as hard as they could to beat the famous red car. And no matter how keen everyone is to beat Ferrari, Eddie, there's always a lot of respect, isn't there?
I think that comes from the boss man. Enzo was a classic person. He brought a huge charisma to Formula One, and I'd say Formula One would be a much sorrier place if they weren't here. No doubt about it.
Well, I think that the whole mystique of Ferrari is built on the fact they go racing. In the beginning, that's why Enzo built production cars so he could afford to go racing. So, you know, the two go hand in hand.
You were famous for building a team that was all about racing rather than much else, Eddie. And in this era of big business and the corporate animal, that's what's nice about Ferrari. You do feel that racing is right at their heart, don't you?
Well, how many companies with the lifespan that they've got and they have no marketing expenditure other than through Formula One, that says everything for them. They have completely encapsulated everything that they need to do. It revolves around their whole involvement in Formula One.
We can see the guys working away behind us. Before long, Felipe and Fernando will come out, start building themselves up and gearing themselves up for qualifying. And there is a lot of pressure, though, isn't there, whenever you're doing anything for Ferrari? One tiny mistake from one engineer, and it's not his mistake, it's Ferrari making a mistake, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. If you go to Italy, there'll be something about Ferrari Formula One team in the papers every single day, whether that's in the season or out of the season. So it's like a religion in Italy, and the responsibility the driver has, the team principle any of these guys have representing the team is felt by the whole country.
And from Alberto Ascari in 1952 to Kimi Raikkonen just 3 years ago, over the years Ferrari have created 15 driver world champions and numerous extremely fast cars. Every single one of them has been born in a little town in northern Italy that Ferrari call home.
Ferrari are the most iconic and historic team in Formula One. They're part of the fabric of the sport. The heart and soul of the team is based here in Maranello. Just look at the beautiful generations of Ferraris casually laying around this workshop, from road cars to race cars.
And with such a rich heritage to protect, there is one man who ultimately carries the responsibility of the Scuderia's history on his shoulders. Ferrari president Luca Di Montezemolo.
Luca, after 60 years, this weekend in Turkey sees the 800th Formula One start for Ferrari. That's quite a milestone.
Looking back, what I'm very proud, and we are proud in Ferrari, that Ferrari has been in Formula One since the beginning, in the good moment, in the difficult moments, in some tragic moments, without a stop. This, I think, is important. After my family is by far the most important thing of my life. I've arrived in the early 70s. We have been able to rebuild the team at that time. And after 12 years from the latest John Surtees victory, we won with Niki in 1975, with Niki Lauda.
In this very car here?
In this fantastic car. And we won many races with Michael.
Oh wow, it's trying to really get away.
We're sitting in the Piazza, Michael Schumacher. How did you feel when in his Mercedes-Benz he passed Fernando in the last corner of the last lap of Monte Carlo?
Again, I think he was not Michael, he was the twin of Michael. I say because I cannot see the real Michael in Mercedes overtaking a Ferrari. So I still think that is a Michael twin. Let me put it this way.
so you're in denial then. It's difficult for you to comprehend Michael in another Formula One car.
Yes. The answer is yes. Having said that, I'm the person that has pushed Michael to come back, because we have got a long conversation in my office at the end of July, and I try to convince him to replace Felipe in such a difficult moment for Ferrari last year. And after 1 hour, I was in condition to convince him. And I think that from this moment, he has got in his mind again the fire of the race. So I can accept. Having said that, I think that he has given a lot to Ferrari and he has received a lot from Ferrari. I think that he was in condition to win and to become so famous in the world, even thanks to Ferrari. You know, this is part of our history, but with all the respect of the drivers change, passes, the Ferrari is still there.
Yeah, let's get rid of a bit more traction control.
Fernando said to me that for him, Ferrari is almost a religion in Italy. Is that how you see it?
The dream of every driver is to drive a Ferrari. I remember when Ayrton came to my home, unfortunately, on the same week of Imola race, he told me, I want to close my career in Ferrari. I want to drive for Ferrari, so as soon as my contract with Williams will expire, please put me in condition to drive Ferrari. I think that except Jackie Stewart and Jim Clark, the most important hero of motor racing has been with Ferrari.
This thing really shifts. That was special.
You know, I always say, Ferrari without Formula One is not Ferrari. And I'm to say also that I think that Formula One without Ferrari is not Formula One. So it's part of the life, it's inside the blood, it's Ferrari. F for Ferrari means Ferrari and Formula One.
And of course, F for Felipe as well. Felipe, how proud were you to make your debut for Ferrari 4 years ago in the Bahrain desert?
Well, I'm very proud. I think it's an incredible history for Ferrari, and I am a little part of this history. You know, so I won some races for the team. I'm already close to 70 races for Ferrari, and I have to be a lot of proud to be part of this incredible brand, this incredible team, and this incredible passion which is Ferrari.
Give us an idea of the kind of passion that pumps around the factory in Italy, because when you turn up there for the first time and look at those buildings, it doesn't look like the kind of place where Formula One cars are born, does it?
No, I mean, I think Ferrari is different because it's a big passion. I mean, you see that people who works there works with a lot of love for the victory, because the red color is something much more than the whatever color, you know, especially what Ferrari built during so many years. So when you buy a Ferrari, you buy a dream, you know? And that's the same in Formula One, and that's the same for the people who works in Ferrari, and for the people who support Ferrari, which is the same.
And when you drive a Ferrari, you drive a dream as well, and I'm sure it'd be a dream for you to pick up a win for Ferrari here, the 800 race in Formula One, and this is a circuit that you love racing on. 3 wins, 3 pole positions. You feel at home there?
Well, it's a very important race for us. Definitely we need to celebrate. If we can do the pole position, the victory will be even more incredible. And then we can celebrate with a nice result. Let's try.
And we know that you love the team and the team love you. Will we be seeing you in a Ferrari next season as well?
We'll see.
Good luck.
I hope so.
Fantastic. Go well today. Thanks a lot. See you later. And we'll head our separate ways. Felipe, I guess he'll walk off through the back of the garage, and I'll make my way out of the front here to join David Coulthard and Eddie Jordan. That is a guy who needs a really strong race weekend, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, and as you mentioned there in the interview, he's won 3 times here out of his 5 starts. Psychologically, if he gets beaten by Fernando at this racetrack, then that's going to dent his confidence a lot going into the middle part of the season, because in the beginning of the season, although he's been consistent, he's been outperformed really by Fernando.
Yeah, and he's a Ferrari boy through and through. Even his management is quite Ferrari related, isn't it?
Well, indeed. You know, there was lots of speculation at the time when he joined Ferrari that with Jean Todt at that time as the sporting director, it's actually Nicolas Todt, who's Jean's son, who is the manager of Felipe. So there was rumour that he got the drive because of the connections, but obviously he's retained that position on merit. He's won Grand Prix, and I think his performance alongside Kimi Raikkonen showed that you know, up until his near miss in Hungary last year, he certainly had great pace.
OK, well, he'll be gearing up for qualifying. Just about 45 minutes to go until the first qualifying session. But going back to that interview with Luca Di Montezemolo, so interesting to hear that Ayrton Senna, in the week of his sad death at Imola, went to Ferrari and said, I want to end my career with you. That's amazing.
Well, I don't see that being a big surprise. I really don't know a driver whose whole life, one, is to get into Formula One, and then when you're in Formula One, you start dreaming about the next dream, is a championship perhaps, but every single driver wants to drive for Ferrari. That's my experience, and I'm sure that's David's too.
Were you ever close to a Ferrari drive?
Well, at the time when I joined McLaren, there was the option to go to Ferrari, and I met with Jean Todt in Paris. And in the end, the contract was such that if I was running third and Michael was fourth, I would have to let him through. And at that time, I was young enough and confident enough to believe I could outperform Michael. I realised through my career that wasn't going to be the case, but I went to McLaren and had a happy 9 years there.
And what about last year? Because we know there was all sorts of problems with Ferrari last year. You're not telling me that you didn't get a phone call?
Well, if it did, I never picked it up. I never had any conversation with Ferrari. You know, I think that once you announce your retirement from Formula One, unless you're Michael Schumacher, it's very difficult to come back.
And you've got lovely memories, actually, of being involved in Formula One, particularly at the Fiorano test track, where we saw Martin Brundle sitting in front of Enzo Ferrari's old office there. You've been there, you've signed Concord agreements there. What are your standout memories of that time?
Well, just the way that Ferrari look after people is indicative. We were flown there privately. Yes, we were brought there by helicopters. And yes, we had the best lunch you've ever could imagine. And then we signed this agreement. And of course, it's all out on the wall. Everyone can see of all the different episodes that we went through. It's something really special. There's no other team in Formula One can offer you that kind of hospitality. Probably no one else has the same level of income or funding. But it was very special. And it is, in the last years, driven by Luca. And Martin has interviewed him him particularly well. He is a magic guy and a very successful guy.
What's surprising for me when I've been there, though, is you would expect something very chic and design-orientated, but in actual fact, where the factory is based for the Formula One team and for the production cars, it just looks like an industrial estate.
It does. It's amazing, actually, when you go there.
Yeah, of course, they've been there for many, many years, but you would have expected them to have tarted it up a little bit.
And after what Eddie said about Ferrari live on the BBC in the past 18 months, do you think he'd still get that kind of treatment if he went to Maranello? I'm not sure.
Don't worry. Ferrari are very forgiving people. They even allowed me into their motorhome, and I pulled their cornettos, real Irish ice cream at the back of their motor. Something very special, and only Ferrari can pull that off.
Lovely. Irish on the brain. And just so you know, there are other makes of ice cream readily available in the Formula One paddock. Nice, thanks for that. Right, let's turn our attention now to this weekend. And quite ironically, really, up next for Formula One, we're heading to a circuit named after one of Ferrari's most loved drivers, the exciting, aggressive Gilles Villeneuve, who would surely have one day been a world champion with the Ferrari team who loved him so much. His homeland is the scene for race 8 of the season in 2 weeks' time. And who'll be leading the way when we get there? Well, one of any 8 men could be leading by then after this weekend. It's such a close title battle for the drivers. In the constructors' battle, it's Red Bull leading the way. Their season-long dominance is finally being rewarded. And of course, dominance in Formula One is something that Michael Schumacher knew all about. 5 consecutive seasons for Ferrari, 5 titles. However, as he proved just a couple of weeks ago in Monaco, there's not much room for sentiment in Formula One.
While the now famous overtake by ex-Ferrari legend Michael Schumacher would have been as satisfying as it was opportunistic, the Mercedes driver admits it wasn't really a fair fight, because Fernando Alonso wasn't defending, having been told there would be no more overtaking. The rules say the race should have finished under safety car conditions with no overtaking allowed, but the mistaken instruction to show the green light and flag at the last corner led Schumacher to believe the race was back on. The stewards gave Michael a 20-second penalty that dropped him down to 12th and cost him 6 points. So while Mercedes were understandably caught out by a confusing rule and a green light that should never have been shown, they decided not to appeal, rather choosing to work with the FIA to clarify the rule.
Why didn't Mercedes appeal?
I mean, the main point is that in the matter of the sport, we decided not to, as well the FIA, and I think that's very, I would say, that's a very good attitude they show with this, to clarify this particular rule in order to avoid misunderstandings such as Monte Carlo. And in the matter of the sport, we decided to leave it where it is and go forward.
Even though you had a pretty solid case, as the FIA later admitted?
Well, you know, I don't think the 6 points will make me, that much different in terms of championship this year. It was a nice move. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I hope you too. And you have to look forward from this matter on, and that's what it is sometimes.
Do you think this was the Michael back to his best?
No doubt. I'm back. Yes, I'm here, and you clearly saw in Monaco. Sometimes you need to make clear examples such as Monaco to make people believe that, understand. But believe me, I've been there before already.
Well, I'm sure if there's one man in the Formula One pit lane that thinks that Michael is back to his best, it's Michael. But Formula One has got to be very careful, because you don't want to see great little overtaking manoeuvres, cheeky little moments like that in a Grand Prix, and for people then to find that actually the driver's been penalised a few seconds.
Yeah, but it wasn't a classic overtaking manoeuvre, was it? You know, at the end of the day,
I quite liked it. It was a bit Michael Schumacher-esque, wasn't it?
Well, it was taking advantage of a situation, and clearly at the moment when he did it, he felt that was the right thing within the rules. For me, it's just crazy that we can have a rule that safety car pulls in for television reasons, and the drivers aren't allowed to overtake. But thankfully, that's been clarified now.
Well, for me, I have to say it was probably the highlight of that race, because it was up to that. Apart from the safety car, it was a relatively boring race. I thought Michael did an amazing job. I would feel, if I was Michael, I think he was very calm in that interview, because he should feel very hard done by. It was a problem. Yes, and of course, the rule is ambiguous, but leaving the ambiguity aside, there was a green light shown, and up came on the screen, track clear. If that happened to me, I would have told my drivers to pass. It's simple. There was a mistake made. It wasn't made by Mercedes, and it certainly wasn't made either by Ferrari. The mistake was by the powers that be, and unfortunately, Michael has taken the blunt. So I would think that Michael has a bit of goodwill left in the tank with the FIA, because they owe him one. This was, for me, not correct.
Yeah, it was also unfortunate, of course, that Damon Hill was at the centre of this. If you remember, we were all joking, weren't we, on Saturday, chatting to him live, saying, you're going to make a few quid out of someone this weekend. And then it turned out there was an incident involving Michael Schumacher. It is tricky, though, isn't it, being a driver on these panels?
Look, the giveaway from me was that it took 3 hours for the stewards to make a decision, and this would be a normal, if it was very clear in the rule book, it would be over and done with within a couple of seconds. 3 hours, they had to contemplate, how do we get out of this one? No one really has made a mistake, but we have to have a ruling. And for me, that's the sad end to it.
OK, well, of course, it's new for Formula One to have former drivers on the stewards panel helping to make the decisions. This weekend, it's Johnny Herbert. Now, I'm hoping that Ross Brawn's going to make his way into the garage in a moment. Pete, if he does, you and I are going to dive in there and have a word with him. I suppose the question mark has got to be now, can they retain the advantage that they found in Monaco at a circuit that is so different?
Well, absolutely. You know, the performance that we've seen from the top teams, the only one that's obviously had the consistency in qualifying has been Red Bull. They've dominated that, but for Mercedes, they've been moving around a little bit in their performance. They're obviously having to outdevelop the other cars around them. So I'm curious to know just how much of the focus do they put into developing this car, giving Michael and Nico what they want for this year, versus regulation changes that we're going to see into next season. Because, of course, you're limited in how much aerodynamic time you can spend in the wind tunnel.
Do you know what? You talk, I deliver. I'm going to pop in there, have a quick word with Ross. Pete, if you come with me, we'll nick in here and see what's going on. And you can see Ross is taking a look here at Nico Rosberg's Mercedes car. If we just dive in, I don't want to disturb if this is an important conversation. You're having a very careful eye on the car there. What are the guys doing? What are you looking at?
Just final prep for qualifying. So it's the last chance we get a chance to change anything before they go into Parc Fermé.
OK, we were just talking about your Monaco performance. A nice step forward there in your ability to compete with the front guys. Are you going to retain that at a circuit that's very different a bit? I suppose this is similar, really, to Spain, where you struggled a bit more.
It's not quite the same as Spain, and this is a fast track, but there's only one fast corner, turn 8. And a lot more slow, medium speed stuff, where the car's not too bad. So I think here will be OK. What's tricky is getting the tyres exactly right. And you know, Nico didn't manage on his first lap this morning, managed on his third lap. So the tyres, to get the most out of the tyres, are very tricky. You saw a lot of people going off.
OK, we can see Michael's car the other side of the garage from us. Michael, of course, was the centre of attention, which is where he was for a long time in Formula One after the Monaco weekend. Now, you came live with us straight after the race, and you had some really compelling evidence. Michael, on the track, clear as day, a green flag right in front of him. Why didn't you appeal the decision? Because you lost 6 points there, and that could be a lot of points at the end of the season.
Well, one of the difficulties was that appealing what was a substitute drive-through penalty has proven in the past not to be very successful.
Steer clear of those.
So, yeah, there was an issue there. Whatever we thought was right or wrong, there was an issue of whether the appeal would actually be admissible. When we discovered that Fernando had been told by his team not to race, it did seem a bit unfair. What we were most aggrieved by was a penalty, because there was clearly a lot of ambiguity in the regulation. And I think a reversal of the positions before that happened would have been the fairest choice. So sticking Michael at the back of the race was a bit tough.
It'll fire him up, though, won't it, for this weekend?
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
Which is what you want. Now, when we spoke a lot last season, there was never any question about stopping working on that fantastic 2009 Brawn GP car. It was all about developing it as far as you can. Now, obviously, the guys are working away here this weekend, doing everything they can to get this car nice and fast. How long, though, till you're focusing on 2011, if this car isn't going to defend the world title for you?
Well, I think it does change subtly, in the sense that you'll be developing things for a 2011 car. If they can be incorporated on this car, you will do, because the manufacturing doesn't really swing into action on the 2011 car until late in the year. It's the design. So if there's design developments we're doing for 11 which can go into 10, we will do, or 10 into 11. So it's a sort of soft merger. I think we were unusual in 2008, and we just abandoned the car completely, and I got everyone focused. But there was a lot of reorganization going on at the same time. So, but we've got a more solid, a more stable organization now, and I think we can handle both sides. But inevitably, you reach a point when you switch your focus, and that's a few races yet before we do that.
Okay, well, Nico was nice and fast in the final 3 practice sessions, so good luck today. Okay. Fingers crossed for a strong weekend. Right. I'll shake you with that hand, because I'm protecting something else that I don't want to drop with this arm. Thanks very much, Ross. Nice to chat to you. So there you go, Ross Brawn now gearing up for today's qualifying session. Qualifying will be coming your way in just over half an hour's time. But of course, with a 2-week break since we were racing these cars in Monaco, Lee McKenzie, she's been a bit stressed out. She loves to get all the paddock gossip, the paddock chats, and as soon as she arrived here in Turkey, she started sniffing around, and this is what she found out.
Formula One is heading back to the United States in 2012 at an all-new purpose-built venue in Austin, Texas. The last Grand Prix in America was at Indianapolis 3 years ago, but Bernie Ecclestone is keen for F1 to get back across the pond.
We have an agreement, and we got a lot of support from the government there and the governor himself, so it's looking good.
There were lots of other places in the running, talk of a New York street race and things. Why was it Texas that made you think this is where we want to race?
Because they're prepared to build the sort of circuit that we want. They will build exactly what we're asking for.
And what are you asking for?
This type of facility.
Lewis Hamilton must have enjoyed being surrounded by the glitz of Monaco. He has swapped his steering wheel and helmet bling for some earrings. But back on track, he's looking forward to mixing it up at the front this weekend.
I think we will be competitive this weekend. I think Ferrari potentially brought something new here, and potentially Red Bull brought something new here as well. So it'll be a real challenge to compete with those guys, but we'll do what we can.
McLaren have revised their procedures after Jenson Button's early departure in Monaco. He was forced to retire after just 2 laps when his car overheated after a blanking had been left in an air duct.
There's new procedures. I think there's always new procedures when something goes wrong, and from what I've seen with this team all season, if there's one tiny issue, they'll throw everything at it to make it right again immediately, and it's very impressive actually.
The first F1 divorce of the season is between Hispania Racing and Italian chassis builders Dallara after a difficult start to the year for both parties. Technical consultant Jeff Willis has been scathing of the chassis design and rate of development. Hispania will now be in charge of making parts and developing the chassis themselves, along with another partner who's rumoured to be based at the former Toyota facility in Cologne. And whilst others are parting company, Sebastian Vettel has a new lady in his life. Randy Mandy takes the place of luscious Liz, who simply didn't perform to her best.
She let us down, obviously. Out of 6 races, I think, we were not always very lucky, but that's life. So we have a new start here, a new chassis, also a lot of new parts. Some of them failed as well, so we'll see. Should be all right.
There were some on-track troubles at Istanbul Park in practice. Adrian Newey's Force India has a new F-duct, but he needed a few more parts after this smash in free practice 1. And Mark Webber was forced to stop on track after his engine blew in the afternoon. After struggling to communicate with the marshals, the Aussie was able to continue his run of celebrations when he finally beat the language barrier. But Webber's woes continued in practice 3 with hydraulic issues, and when he did get back out, he seemed to struggle with handling, as did teammate Sebastian Vettel, although the German did manage to top the timesheets.
Quite a frustrating day so far for Mark Webber. Frustration too for Williams. This front wing that they've got here is actually the front wing that they had on the car before we arrived at the Monaco Grand Prix. You probably remember there was a big accident for Nico Hülkenberg and Rubens Barrichello. The team haven't actually had a chance yet to build and bring out their brand new front wing. It's been a difficult season so far for Williams, Eddie, hasn't it?
Well, it has been a huge disappointment for them because they came in with high hope, particularly Hülkenberg. And with Rubens, he did so well last year with Brawn. This is a disappointment for them, yes, for sure.
And in Formula One, people love to be where there's success. And if you actually just take a look to your right slightly, you can see the number of people hanging out around Renault. And you get the impression, David, that Renault are not a million miles away in terms of pace from turning the top 4 into the top 5.
Well, indeed, the performance in Monaco, they were there on merit. A fantastic drive from Robert Kubica. And then again here in practice, we've seen him getting in amongst the front runners. So I think they are the most developed of the teams we've seen out on track so far this season. You know, if you look from where they started to where they are now. And, you know, I think future podiums are definitely on the cards.
And I know that Force India are currently the team that was once Jordan, Eddie. You've got a nice affection for them. How do you rate their years so far?
I'm not biased, but
No, he's not biased.
I think they are there on merit. I think they've done a remarkably good job. 2 cars finish at Monaco. That's a very difficult place to finish with 2 cars. They did it in a strong position. I think they're 6th in the championship. Can they make it any higher? It's going to be a tall order, because the big surprise for me is Renault. Renault has a speed car. That car is a very good car, and in the hands of Robert, doing an amazing job.
Yeah, Robert Kubica doing fantastically well for Renault. So there we go. We've had a little wander down the pit lane. Nice and quiet at the moment. Won't be quiet for long. Less than half an hour until qualifying begins, and there are a variety of ways that you can watch qualifying with us here on the BBC. And I'm quite sure that when the drivers are in their cars gearing up for the sessions or for the races, they're tuning into the BBC coverage, surely, aren't they? And of course, you can check out the website bbc.co.uk/Formula 1. All sorts of blogs and stats and various things on there. You can press the red button during the race tomorrow. You can select alternative commentary. You can also ride on board with various different drivers. And if you miss a trick all weekend, then you can check out the BBC iPlayer for the next 7 days. Now take a look behind me. You can see the Virgin Racing team right there. Now Lucas de Grassi is brand new to Formula 1 this year. He served his apprentice and he served it well. 3 years in GP2, 3 times he almost picked up the title. Well, finally this year he got his drive in Formula 1, and with it he got the pad in Monaco that every driver dreams of. He invited Lee Mackenzie in for a cup of tea.
This is your new house.
Yeah, pretty small, but it's pretty good as well. I moved here in the beginning of this year, January. Please, feel at home. That's the bed for the guests. There's supposed to be a sofa here with a TV.
This is the most organised bit of the entire room.
It's just because I just arrived. Please don't open the fridge.
There's actually no food.
There is food, actually.
Okay. Do you ever eat in this house?
Only breakfast. You see, food. Senna lives just over there. On the first floor lives Felipe Massa. Nico used to live in this building as well.
How often do you use this?
Well, pretty much every day, I think.
Why do you need 2 balconies?
I don't know.
It's been pretty relaxing being here, looking around your house, but it's been slightly less relaxing on the track, I would imagine, for you. It's been a tough start to your Formula 1 career.
Yeah, I mean, we start a whole new team. It was more or less expected that it was going to be tough. But on the other hand, I'm learning a lot. I mean, every time I'm on the track, the car is getting better, the team is getting better. So it's been tough, but a very productive start.
You're always so enthusiastic and so positive, but when you hear things like your fuel tank's not big enough to finish a race, do you not just think, oh my goodness?
It's sometimes frustrating, but on the other hand, I know that the team is making the best effort to give me the best car. So it's pointless for me to give up and complain. The other teams have built a Formula 1 car for the past 40 years, while we build ours in the past 4 months. So it's a massive difference in performance.
But do you still think the guys at the front should be a little bit more respectful about the situation, because you are all doing the best you can?
Formula 1 always had slow cars and fast cars. That's why that 107% rule was created in the past. Just this year that we got 3 new teams, we have this difference. And for sure we will catch up. We just need a little bit of patience that everything will sort it out with time.
And Virgin for the rest of this year. Is it a battle with the new teams? Is it a battle with your teammate? How do you see this?
The main target for us is to finish as the best of the new teams. So it's been a very tough fight with Lotus. They got a small advantage in the Barcelona, but still nobody has done any points yet, and for sure one of the teams will do at least 1 or 2 by the end of the season. So I'm looking forward that it's us, and we can beat our target.
Well, so Lucas de Grassi's dream has finally been realised, although it's not far off being a little bit of a nightmare. I've actually been looking at Twitter in the last few minutes. Lots of people always interesting on Twitter, always asking me questions about Virgin, and mainly Lucas de Grassi not having a car that can get to the end of a Grand Prix. However, they now finally, for this race, have a fuel tank that's long enough, and that's demonstrated by this huge, great big fin here. What's it like for new drivers to come into F1, having dreamt all their life about racing in the #1 series and then being told, well, listen, mate, your car won't make it to the end of a Grand Prix if it's at full racing speed?
Well, I've never experienced that. It is a fundamental error by the design team, but we've been in situations where you have a car which is unreliable and you think that it's going to be difficult to make it to the end of a Grand Prix, especially at the start of a season. But I guess he's just happy to be there and show his talents, and hopefully he'll be able to move up into, either with this team, better performances in the future, or move to another team that can give him better results.
Lotus have found some decent speed, but we've had a few issues for Virgin. We know that Hispania Racing have split up with Dallara, who made their chassis. It's just evidence of how difficult it is to just arrive in Formula One, isn't it?
Well, people often said to me, what was the greatest moment that I had? And I said, survival. That's what these three teams have to do. They have to survive. Nothing else. They've got to try and do the best they can, improve as they go along, but survive. Survival is key.
OK, so for these teams, it's all about surviving. For Red Bull, it's all about picking up the wins. But just why is that car so fast?
It's the fastest car in Formula One. It's dominated every qualifying.
It's a Red Bull pole again.
It's won half the races so far.
It's another one too.
It's the Red Bull RB6. Everywhere you look, they're trying to hide its secrets. But we can still take a look at what makes this great car of Formula One so fast. The first key area is the way the Red Bull uses its exhaust gas to add downforce. It's the only car doing this, but it's an old engineering trick, using the fast exhaust gas to feed the diffuser, making it more powerful. Venting that high-velocity exhaust out of the side also helps control the damaging wake that flows off the rear wheels and guide it safely around the back of the car. No other car in the pit lane has this exhaust system, not yet at least. The Red Bull-style exhausts will soon be on the Williams.
You'd be crazy to say that you're not going to put the Red Bull exhaust system on there, because I think everyone will be flat out doing that. And we'll be on our car very soon. They're obviously using exhaust to improve the performance of the diffuser. The two things interact pretty heavily together.
Next we move round to the diffuser. If last year's Red Bull RB5 had been designed with a double diffuser, it may well have beaten Brawn to the World Championship. Adrian Newey learnt his lesson for this season and has designed one of the most intricate double diffusers on the grid that the mechanics are very keen to keep private.
Double diffusers were clarified last summer. The development in that area has been huge. I think we're probably close to 2 seconds quicker than we were this time last year.
So while the diffuser and exhaust system gives the car immense rear downforce, it's only half the reason why the Red Bull is so quick. Efficient sculpted side pods and floor, good weight distribution and cooling, and a drivable and fuel-efficient Renault engine all add to the mix. Even so, the Red Bull boss wants more power.
We're probably as much as 20 horsepower, maybe even 30 down on the benchmark in Formula One. We'll see at circuits such as Montreal and Monza, where engines really come into their own where we stand.
Then there's the way the car uses its tyres. The car suspension geometry gets good heat into the tyres for qualifying, but does not overheat them for the race.
And I think that's where a lot of gains have come this year in terms of using the tyre economically, but also extracting the most out of it.
Finally, there's the front wing. It's the most sophisticated on the grid.
The thing about the front wing is it's the first bit of bodywork that hits the air, and so your front wing design is really, really crucial to the whole car concept.
Ominously for their competitors, Red Bull are finding more speed every weekend. They're trialling the F-duct system that gives a straight-line speed advantage in Turkey. The RB6 has a sufficient advantage here this weekend not to need it, but it's likely to be used on the long straights of Montreal in a fortnight's time.
As you put a new component on the car, it takes you in a slightly new direction. We analyse the data, we look at the performance, we listen to the driver feedback, and it opens up either a development avenue or shuts one off and points us in a different direction.
I've been in their position fortunately once or twice, and it's always a complete package. There's really one thing that makes the big difference, but they've got a nice car, a low centre of gravity, good aerodynamics, and it's quick.
But catchable.
Always. I mean, nobody rules forever, and everybody is catchable.
It's the car everybody's chasing, it's the car that everybody's talking about, and it's the car that Christian Horner is the team principal of. Christian, congratulations on pole position again today. I thought that one might throw you.
Don't go tempting fate.
Well, listen, it looks inevitable. Once again, your car is fast, but you do get the impression as you walk up and down the pit lane that they're not letting you relax, are they? I spoke to Jensen last night. He's chasing you down. We just heard from Ross Brawn there. The pressure's on you guys, isn't it?
Well, I think, you know, the car's been performing well at variants of different tracks, slow tracks, fast tracks. The circuit here has the fastest corner on, you know, over the year. The car's performing very well there, but there's also a very long straight that goes uphill, which is probably our Achilles heel.
Christian, we've seen an unbelievable corner rage here, as you rightly say, the fastest corner on the circuit. Mark Webber taking it flat out. I mean, can you imagine what that must feel like? But also for you, because no other car on the pit lane here is even able to come close. 0.4 of a second, I understand. You have an advantage there.
Eddie, I haven't got a clue what you said, which probably doesn't make much of a difference. But
I'll probably answer for you then.
I think you were talking about turn 8. It's a fantastic corner. The commitment through the drivers there, David well knows, it's an awesome corner. Both of them have been absolutely flat through there, and it's you know, testimony to the performance of the car.
You answered it perfectly. Well done.
Did you ask your guys to turn on the engines and start revving just as the BBC turn up? Is this all in the plan? Keeping us quiet. Let's just move away from the garage slightly because it is quite loud in there. Talking about your car and the way it's going to go this weekend, there have been a couple of issues, haven't there? Mark Webber in the final free practice session, having lost an engine yesterday. What happened in that final session when he was cruising?
Well, both the drivers, you know, they've had varying form through the season so far, and Mark's performance in the last couple of races has been, you know, phenomenal. So, yeah, he's on a high at the moment. Sebastian has had a difficult couple of races, but I expect the two of them to be very competitive this weekend.
Sebastian has a different chassis for this weekend. Is there any psychological reason for doing that, or is it just a natural change as you go through the year?
Well, we found an issue with Sebastian's chassis after the race in Monaco. He was struggling with the front end of the car, especially at the restarts, and we found an issue relating to that, and basically there was time to repair the chassis, but it was a bit tight, so we elected to change it for here, and he seems a lot happier this weekend.
Okay, let's just talk about Adrian Newey, the man that's designed this car. Do you think he gets enough credit for the design that he's come up with for this car?
I mean, Adrian's a remarkable guy. I mean, his success spans, you know, many years. I think David won all his Grand Prix in Adrian's cars, and, you know, there's a lot of drivers, you know, Damon Hills, Mika Häkkinen's, you know, Nigel Mansell's that owe a lot of their success to, you know, to the cars that Adrian's produced. But you know, as in any team, it's all about the team. We're very fortunate to have Adrian with us, and he leads the technical group, you know, brilliantly well. But, you know, we've also got tremendous strength and depth, and, you know, the performance that this car is generating is, you know, testimony to the strength and depth that we have at Red Bull.
There was an article in a German newspaper saying that Adrian is set to stay on at Red Bull. Did you ever think that he was going anywhere at the end of this year? Where did that come from?
Adrian, you know, he's not as old as he looks, and you know, he's very happy working at Red Bull. We enjoy having him with us, and you know, he's often said, I don't want to work for another team in Formula One, and there's a few years in the old dog yet.
Okay, are his cars nice to drive?
Well, any car that wins Grand Prix is nice to drive, but I think that maybe what's difficult for the public to maybe understand is that a quick car is tricky to drive and a slow car becomes easier. So, you know, when you're winning races, it's normally right at the peak of the performance of the vehicle, so it's twitchy, it moves around a lot, and famously he used to design incredibly cramped cockpits, but thankfully there's a rule that allows for a driver up 6'2" to be able to fit into them today.
Well, I'm still a bit too tall for that, but I wouldn't mind having a go. Thank you very much, Christian. Nice to chat to you. And of course, it's Mark Webber at the moment who's the guy that's enjoying a difficult to drive but very fast car indeed. And in Monaco, wasn't it just fantastic? The drive was impressive, the celebrations were even better, and he spoke to us live straight afterwards.
Oh, incredible day. Absolutely incredible day, and it's a great sports story.
And after that, Mark Webber spoke to Eddie Jordan. He flew home, Eddie Jordan flew and joined him. And you can see there Eddie not really petting the dogs, he was slightly scared of them, but you can find out what Mark Webber had to say tomorrow in our build-up to the race. Now, Christian, very quickly before I let you go, pole position, it really is on the cards today, isn't it?
That's the first time I've heard one of your questions this afternoon. I think that, you know, we're in good shape. The drivers are both, you know, happy with their cars. We've got some last-minute parts coming to Mark's car that should be here in the next 5 minutes. And, Yeah, the car's performing well. The McLarens look quick as well, so we take nothing for granted.
OK, and at least we know that the engines are working just fine. Christian, nice to see you. Good luck this weekend. And it's Christian's cars that will be flying around this track, desperately trying to grab pole position, and this is a circuit that the drivers just love.
Turkey, Istanbul Park, Istanbul. 3.317 miles. Downforce, low. Classic moment. Hamilton blows out. 2007.
No, he's got a damaged right front tyre.
It's a beautiful circuit. It's up and down, and very good corners in it, and quite technical, and quite a few good opportunities to pass.
Turn 3, 4, 5, they are beautiful corners, just like one is very flowing, one leads you to the other one, and you just have to commit to the corners without actually seeing the apex, the blind corners. So it's a very nice track.
It's a very flowing circuit. There's a lot of tricky corners because there's a lot of cambers, positive and negative. There's turn 8, which is a long, fast corner, 6th gear, 4 apexes, and if you've got it right, you can probably take it flat in a good car.
We go into the corner flat, 6th gear, 250 kph, so it's unbelievable. And if you go there, physically walk there, it's a proper corner. It turns left. It's not a straight and a little king.
For me, very difficult corner is turn 9 after turn 8, braking into it, and the exit is very important because afterwards it's quite long straight going into turn 12, so quite important corner.
Corner 8 is one of the most exciting one of all the championship, but I prefer the corner after the left and right going uphill before the back straight, because it's a corner where the car is particularly light in the middle, and you have to try to carry as more speed as possible and to go as early as possible on throttle.
It's a nice track all in all, but also apart from turn 8, good corners and interesting sections where you can lose and gain time, so it's a challenge.
A challenge indeed, and a challenge that the drivers will be taking in just over 13 minutes' time. We've left Christian on the loud side. We've decamped out here to the paddock, the nice, wide, quite busy and very hot paddock here in Turkey as we get ready for qualifying today. Tell us what it's like, David, turn 8 as a driver.
Well, you're obviously strapped into the car incredibly tightly. The only thing that's not strapped in place, of course, is your arms and your head. So, as the forces pull against your neck, it's literally like someone's trying to remove it from your shoulders. It's very bumpy in the middle as well, which throws in an added complication, because if the car touches the ground, then, you lose at that moment a little bit of load. I'm actually watching some footage here of Mark, and he's absolutely flat out all the way through that corner. And here's how not to do it. Lewis catching the curb in the middle of the corner. And there we are again. You see, just got on the curb, and the minute you drop the wheel over, you lose load in the tyres, and unsurprisingly, you go for a spin. There's been a number of people going off at this corner today. Here we see Vettel as well, all desperate to try and get their eye in for qualifying, because they know if they can keep it flat, there's well over a tenth. And then again, Mark has a spin here and does a bit of corrective action, brings the car back round, pointing in the right direction. You see the outboard shot. Pretty impressive that he's able to regain control and drive again. And then this was Massa yesterday, just to show that Ferraris are having some issues as well. So
everyone's struggling.
Everyone's having difficulty in turn 8. But as I said, there's a lot of lap time available in that corner, so that's why they want to do it.
That's a lovely shot there, just as he makes his way back onto the track. Michael giving him a little wave to say, hello, former teammate, I'm fine round turn 8.
Yeah, indeed.
I think turn 8 is one of those unbelievably great corners. We've seen Eau Rouge and Spa. This, for a relatively new circuit, this turn 8 is one of the real daddies. It's everyone loves it, because if you can get it right, the buzz is just an amazing thing for the driver.
And we've never seen so many of the top drivers and teams having issues at any of the other circuits, so it really shows the challenge they have there.
Could you ever go flat out through turn 8?
Not at that point of the racing, because we were still in groove tyres when I retired in 2008. But the cars today have more downforce than any other time in the history of the sport. They're on slick tyres, and that's why the good guys are getting it flat now.
OK, well, you saw Lewis Hamilton there having a little bit of an issue around turn 8, and he's been speaking to Ted Kravitz.
Well, Lewis, a good time in final practice. How's it looking going into qualifying?
It doesn't feel so bad. I think we made some good changes over the night. And yesterday, really, the biggest problem was bottoming through turn 8. Car just touches so much and snaps into oversteer, but it was better today. And obviously at the beginning of the session I had a bit too much bottoming and had a nice spin, but fortunately the marshals got me out and I was able to do another lap. So we'll see how we go in qualifying.
Have a good session, thanks.
Now, one thing we will see in qualifying is the guys going out on the soft tyres, the faster tyres, to try and get in that perfect time. Just explain what the drivers talk about or mean when they talk about the golden window of opportunity to get a hot lap in on those tyres.
Well, the key thing for qualifying, of course, is just having your tyres start the lap at the right pressure. And by the time you get to the last corner, you want to be using the last bit of the grip before the compounds are starting to go off effectively. You know, it starts to harden as the chemical reaction happens. So a big challenge for the engineers and the drivers is to get the right tyre pressure for that one lap, because that's a very different tyre pressure that you would run for a 20-lap stint, for instance. So getting it right is the black art of making the tyres work.
And we saw Lewis there, having seen a fair bit of Lewis and Jenson around here this weekend. Both of them are leaning very heavily on the fact that last year McLaren were pretty slow at the start of the season and managed to claw back all of the deficit. They've been working so hard at the technology centre, haven't they, to get ready for this race?
Well, even Jenson's interview, I was impressed the way he stood by the team, even though for me it was a pretty basic error what happened in Monaco, and it should never have happened. But having said that, he's bounced back and he's quick and he looks good here. And I think McLaren have a different ethos within the team, and there seems to be a much better togetherness, and that's beginning to pay off.
Yeah, you say it should never happen, but the fact is this is the human element of the sport. When a driver puts it off the circuit, you know, he lets the team down. So, you know, I think that one occasional mistake can be accepted over the course of a season.
OK, well, I've actually managed to track down Jenson Button. He's been making his way around the paddock this weekend, gearing up for today's qualifying session. And I sat down and asked him about the pressure on McLaren at the moment.
I was speaking to Webber. We just... Mac Webber. We're just speaking to him in the driver's briefing and talking about the circuit actually in turn 8, and he's flat through turn 8, and it's like, mate, how can you be flat through turn 8? He just had a big smile on his face, and it's like, we're going to get you one day this year. We are going to get you.
As I said to Christian, the pressure's on, the drivers are chasing after them, but it's nice to hear, you know, what the guys talk about when they're together, and clearly Mark is revelling in the fact that he's got a great car. He's the Monaco winner.
Yeah, he's on the crest of a wave. He's had two great performances in the last two Grand Prix. Obviously, Barcelona was a strong win for him as well. And he knows that this is his best opportunity. So, you know, he's very grounded in his approach. He knows that he needs to pull out some consistent results in the second half of the season. But the banter between the drivers, you know, they know that the natural ebb and flow of motor racing, at any given season, they might have the best car, or in the case of McLaren at the moment, and Jenson there, he knows they've got to do some work to develop that package.
As he said there, he is tracking that Red Bull, he's chasing them down, but he's also very relaxed, and you can see what else he had to say in that interview in our build-up to tomorrow's Turkish Grand Prix race. Now, Parc Fermé. As soon as qualifying's over today, the cars will enter Parc Fermé conditions, and Martin Brundle can now explain why it's such an integral part of Formula One.
Parc Fermé literally means a closed park where competition cars can only be worked on in a very controlled way. It was introduced 7 years ago to dramatically cut costs. Teams used to rebuild their cars after every session. Parc Fermé begins immediately that the cars roll out for their first lap of qualifying. And from that moment, the work is closely controlled. So what can they change? They can start the engines, of course, and add or remove fuel. Wheels and tyres can be changed, as they are throughout qualifying, and they can be rebalanced and tyre pressures checked. The brakes can be bled and engine oil drained. The front wing can be adjusted, but only using existing parts. If there's a significant weather change after qualifying, brake and radiator cooling tape can be altered. Genuine accident damage may be repaired, but only with identical parts, and any other work must be sanctioned by the FIA scrutineer. The cars are basically kept on a life support system with electronic and heating and cooling devices attached. Now, one man has to oversee all of this lot as the policeman, and that's the scrutineer at the back. That's a tough job. A lot of work is going on this car, all within the regulations, but he has to understand exactly what all of the mechanics are doing and making sure there's nothing untoward with regard to adjustments or fresh pieces going on this car. 3.5 hours after qualifying finishes, the cars are covered over and sealed by the FIA. New for 2010 is the FIA's all-seeing eye. The cars are watched overnight in their own garages by motion-sensitive CCTV cameras. Any activity is quickly detected and investigated.
5 hours before the race, these seals and covers are removed, but the cars remain under Parc Fermé conditions until the lights go out at the start of the race.
And until qualifying begins, the guys can work away on the cars as much as they like, and I imagine they'll be working quite hard at the moment. Now, Lewis Hamilton has got the obvious distractions here with him this weekend, but I'm sure he's keeping his mind on the job, because qualifying here is a pretty tough task. It's an incredible circuit, so who is going to do well, who's going to fall by the wayside? We know that the 6 new teams tend to go out in the first part of qualifying where we lose 7 drivers. Who could be the fall guy along with them?
Well, I think Petrov is somebody that really needs to up his game, and if he continues to keep spinning at high speed and be a little bit more reckless, he could be the fall guy.
Well, I would imagine that the Sauber, Kobayashi, probably is the guy that's going to drop out in that first part of qualifying.
OK, time for 24 cars to make to the track. Only 17 of them will be left standing. It's time to join your commentators, Martin Brundle, alongside Jonathan Ledgard.